Do the Republicans even need the Democrats at the state level?
Absolutely. I mean, I think oftentimes as Democrats, we balance things off. In many of our bills that we've had, Democrats and Republicans work together, especially if we're from the same region. Senator Schmidt and I often look after St. Louis County, and we make sure that things don't go wrong.
Maybe I should ask you the question. Do you need the Democrats? Because you guys can do it as you, if you voted as a block, you can do what you want.
I think most of us, I know I do, take the approach that a good idea is a good idea no matter who it comes from. I think the education bill is a great example of how we've worked together in a bipartisan way to come up with some solutions that can give kids who are in unaccredited school districts a better chance at a good education. Last year, and Senator Chappelle-Nadal was a very key player in that, and it will be this year again. We work very closely on that, and that's how we're able to pass bills, with 30 votes, which sends a very strong message as a bill comes out of the Senate over to the House or to the governor that we can, in fact, override a veto if he chooses to do so. So I think education is probably the best example we have in the last couple of years of how we try to work together.
Is that your top priority going in, education?
It's one of our priorities. I would say that we also have to look at policy that will positively impact Ferguson. But I do have to say in that, education is the foundation of everything. We missed an opportunity last year when the governor vetoed a bill that we had worked on as senators from the region and throughout the state for a year and a half. And it really set back a lot of things and opportunities for young people. As you know, Michael Brown attended the Normandy School District. They experience a large number of kids who don't complete their education in high school, and he did. And so to have kids who are looking towards the future and just to be in a district that's unaccredited, it's an unfortunate situation, and we're going to have to face some real troubling situations in the future. A great example of that is St. Louis City. We don't know where their accreditation is going to be, and they have 12,000 students. That is going to impact, especially if you are in the inner suburban areas, that's going to impact school districts like University City.
So are you, just real quick, not to go the whole time on education, but you're okay with a little public money going to a private school?
Actually, that was my proposal. The language that I put in is that public money could go to a non-religious institution. The way that I wrote that piece of legislation is that you had to go through several different tiers. So one, you could not transfer to a school unless you had an intra-district transfer opportunity first. And so that's what we wanted to do, is to limit the ability of students to leave so that we would not take away more money from the sending district. Normandy, as you know, if they had more students that left than did, they would be totally bankrupt. And that's what we were facing last year, and that's what we still can face. So right now, we've been in some negotiations. They've been very fruitful. This time around, we have the governor who is participating in these conversations. And I think he understands we're going to move forward with or without him.
Is the governor governing differently?
We'll see. I mean, he gives a State of the State on Wednesday. Last year, he did not engage very much at all. And I think that, as we passed the first tax cut and the broad-based tax relief in 100 years, the governor vetoed that. We had to override him. But again, getting back to education, that was an issue that was completely ripe for his input, his leadership, and the legislature took that on, and we worked in a bipartisan way. But it certainly was not very involved last year. I hope that he is involved as we try to work together to solve some of the very serious challenges we have, not only as a region, but as a state.
Macks Creek is a small town in Missouri that a lot of people know about that they might not otherwise because of the Macks Creek law. How do you want to change that law?
Well, I think for far too long we've had too many municipalities too reliant on traffic tickets and fines to fund their government. And some of those issues have been brought to light more recently. I mean, just in St. Louis County, you have 14 municipalities where their single biggest source of income are traffic tickets and fines. St. Louis region has about 22% of the state. It's about 50% of the fines. We've got 81 municipal courts in St. Louis County. That's 61 more than any other circuit in the entire state, which in many of those circuits include include multiple counties. So clearly, I think this is an issue that's ripe for reform. I think, you know, government by speed trap or taxation by citation is not the right way for us to move forward. And the injustice plays out for people who can least afford it. I mean, we are, with this system that we have intact, we are pushing the poorest further into poverty. We have modern day debtor prisons, and I think Republicans and Democrats can work together to try to fix that, because these are injustices that we actually have right here in front of us. So my bill would lower that percentage from 30% right now, which you can collect from traffic tickets and fines, to 10. If you're from the St. Louis area, you don't need to look any further than St. Anne. I grew up in North County. My grandmother still lives in St. Anne. When Northwest Plaza was Northwest Plaza, there wasn't a speed trap on 70. Northwest Plaza's gone, and now there's a speed trap on 70. And to put that into further context, just 6 years ago, there were 2,000 citations given in St. Anne. Now there's 9,000. The revenue from traffic tickets and fines was 500,000. Now it's 3.5 million. We have a problem, and I think we need to work together to fix it.
Of course, some people would say, don't speed, you won't get a ticket.
Yeah, but we're not, I agree, and I'm obviously want the law to be enforced, but we're not talking about hardened criminals here. We're talking about some people who maybe have a taillight out, life happens, they miss a court date, and then they're in jail until the next time the court meets. And that's wrong. We're not supposed to have a system. We also have, I think, some flaws within our municipal court system right now. 40% of them in the St. Louis region don't allow kids in the courtroom. So people who are trying to go to night court, who are maybe working a job or two, have to make a decision between paying a babysitter and paying the fine. We can do better than that.
Would that solve what we the unrest in Ferguson?
Absolutely not. In fact, those are two different, distinct issues. We are talking about inequality, and just going back on Max Creek, the legislature did a disservice when we passed that law. The way that revenue is defined is inaccurate. There are certain funds that are mandated by municipalities, such as domestic violence. Why would a municipality that is mandated to put money, part of their revenue, into domestic violence, not do that? So we have to recalculate what revenue is, because it is not accurately defined at the state level. That is a mistake that we made as a General Assembly. The next thing that I would note is that every municipality is different. I represent 41 municipalities in St. Louis County, and there are some municipalities that are obviously doing the wrong thing by over-ticketing, and it's not right. But there are other municipalities that are doing the right thing, and as I talk to my mayors on a quarterly basis, one of the issues that has come up is that there are repeat offenders, and they never understand the fact that you have to stop repeating the same error time and time again. And also, the thing that should be noted is that some of these municipalities that do have best practices give multiple opportunities and payment plans for individuals who cannot pay for some of the fines that they have received. Getting to the point of Michael Brown and the injury that has occurred in our community, in our region, in our state, and across the country, we are talking about a young man who was unarmed, who was the victim of institutional racism. He was walking. When we talk about municipal courts, we're talking about people who are driving. Two different things. We need to address inequality, racial inequality, bias, and educate police officers. But what's most important as well is that we have to educate our young people so they understand the democratic process. Many of our kids right now, they've been protesting, and I'm very proud of the peaceful protesters who have been out there to send the message out. They are not going to tolerate injustice any longer. But at the same time, they must understand what Senator Schmidt and I understand about the democratic process. We have two cultures, and Senator Schmidt and I are right in the middle of it, especially myself. I live in an urban area, but I also experience a different culture in the state Senate. And so our young people have to understand there is a certain process. This is a unique time. This is the first time I've ever seen in 15 years where you have a supermajority of Republicans who won't pass Medicaid expansion, but will listen and try to adopt policy that impacts in a positive way people living in North County who have experienced injustice. Senator Schmidt, as well as other senators, Republican for the most part, have come to my district to talk to my citizens. But I must say There is a clear distinction with court reform, which I agree with, municipal court reform, with some changes in what revenue is, and the injury that was done on August 9th.
We could do a whole show, but she mentioned Medicaid. Any chance of Medicaid expansion in Missouri?
I doubt it.
Would you like to see it?
No, I wouldn't be in favor of expanding a program right now that doesn't serve the almost 900,000 Missourians that are currently enrolled in the program. You've got about...
What we're seeing here, not to interrupt,
Okay.
is are people who feel very strongly about a lot of things, but one of the things they were calling for is Medicaid expansion.
Yeah, right now with about our 900,000 enrollees, almost 1 in 6 Missourians who are on Medicaid right now, we see of our general revenue budget about $200 to $300 million just to maintain for that current population for the increased healthcare cost. If we were to expand to another 400,000, that number goes up by another $300 million a year. So we're talking about every year from our general revenue budget, just for the cost to increase, we're talking about $500 million every year in the increase. So we have to be honest about what we can afford. That doesn't preclude us from looking towards other kinds of reforms. Last year, we tried to work within the current Medicaid population to provide dental benefits, which can save money in the long run before people end up in more critical situations. So I think the General Assembly would be very open to talking about how we can reform a system that we believe is broken.